At 11:42, on a Thursday night, my banking app congratulated me for spending $13,480 on a vacation to Greece. I had been specifically told not to attend. The passengers were my parents, my younger sister and her boyfriend, my golden child brother, and his fiancée. My name appeared nowhere on the itinerary, except beneath the words primary payment method. That morning, my father had smiled over pancakes and said, "This trip is really for couples and established family units. You'd feel like the odd one out." My mother had touched my hand and added, "You're the independent one, Ava. You understand things the others don't." My brother laughed and said, "Besides, somebody has to stay home and keep the family emergency fund operational." Everyone laughed. I did too, because humiliation becomes easier for people when the victim helps with the timing. I went to work, answered messages about airport transfers they expected me to arrange, and let them believe I had accepted my place. Then the charge arrived. By midnight, I had frozen the card, removed every family member from every account attached to my name, changed my passwords, and withdrawn my authorization from the travel agency. By sunrise, their villa deposit, private ferry tickets, vineyard dinner, and engagement photography session were beginning to collapse. But the trip was not the betrayal that finally ended my role in the family. The real betrayal came 3 weeks later at Thanksgiving, when 24 relatives watched my father slide a typed apology across the table and order me to sign it so my brother's fiancée would stop asking how many other lies our family had built around my money. My name is Ava Reynolds. I was 34 years old when this happened, living in Charlotte, North Carolina, and working as a regional procurement manager for a nonprofit hospital network. My job involved keeping 6 hospitals supplied when ordinary systems failed. Hurricanes, medication shortages, transportation delays, refrigeration failures, cyber attacks, power outages, contaminated shipments, and the occasional executive who believed shouting could make a truck arrive faster. I was good at the work because I could look at chaos, identify what still functioned, and build the next decision around reality instead of panic. Unfortunately, that skill had made me invaluable to a family that created emergencies faster than it created accountability. My parents, Thomas and Diane Reynolds, lived outside Raleigh in a 2-story brick house they had purchased when I was 11. My younger brother, Caleb, was 31 and worked as a sales manager for a residential construction company. My sister, Emily, was 28 and taught group fitness classes while finishing a graduate program in nutrition. Caleb's fiancée, Nora Bennett, was 30 and worked in event marketing. Emily's boyfriend, Mason, was a physical therapist who had been around for almost 3 years and had mastered the Reynolds family survival strategy of smiling politely while asking very few questions. I was the oldest child, the unmarried child, the child without children, and therefore the child whose time, money, guest room, credit score, vacation days, emotional stamina, and emergency contacts were considered flexible. My family never said I mattered less in one dramatic sentence. They said it through 1,000 practical decisions. Caleb needed the larger bedroom because he played sports. Emily needed mom at her dance competition because she became anxious before performing. Ava could ride with another parent because Ava was responsible. Caleb's first car needed to be reliable because he worked evenings. I could keep driving Grandma's 12-year-old sedan because I knew how to take care of things. Emily's college graduation deserved a catered party because she had struggled emotionally. Mine had been celebrated with dinner after Caleb's baseball tournament because rescheduling the tournament was impossible, and "You're not someone who needs a production." That became the family's favorite compliment. Ava does not need a production. Ava is low maintenance. Ava understands. Ava can handle it. Those phrases sounded like praise until I realized they were instructions. Do not ask. Do not compete. Do not make your disappointment expensive for anyone else. My father ran a small appliance repair and installation business for most of my childhood. Reynolds Home Service never made us wealthy, but it kept the house comfortable and allowed Dad to behave as though financial authority was part of his personality rather than a temporary relationship with cash flow. He was loud, charming, generous in public, and deeply offended by questions about how generosity would be funded. At restaurants, he ordered appetizers for the table and later asked me to cover the tip because his business card was acting strange. At family reunions, he volunteered to pay for matching shirts, then sent me a message at midnight saying the printer needed payment before morning. He loved grand gestures and resented the dull administrative work required to support them. Mom performed the dull work until I became old enough to absorb it. Diane had spent 20 years as an administrative assistant at an insurance office before reducing her hours. She understood bills perfectly. She also understood my father's moods. Over time, she became an expert at converting his demands into requests that sounded like love. Your father's embarrassed to ask, but the roof repair came in higher than expected. Caleb's truck broke down during his probation period. You don't want him to lose the job over $2,000, do you? Emily needs a deposit for the graduate program before her aide arrives. She'll repay you when everything settles. We're family, Ava. Family doesn't keep score. The people saying that were always the ones whose score improved when mine disappeared. I was not born financially cautious. I became cautious because money in our house behaved like water running downhill. It always found the child with the weakest boundary. At 16, I worked at a grocery store and saved $900 for a school trip to Washington, D.C. 2 weeks before the payment deadline, Dad used the money to replace a commercial refrigerator for a restaurant client who had promised to pay immediately. The client took 4 months. The trip happened without me. Dad returned the money eventually and said, "See? Everything worked out." I did not explain that the bus had left in April. At 19, I used a summer internship paycheck to pay the electric bill after Dad's business entered a slow season. At 22, I covered Caleb's apartment deposit because my parents said helping him move closer to his first job would give him momentum. When I accepted a position in Charlotte after college, nobody offered to help with my deposit. Dad said, "You're the one person I don't worry about." I carried my boxes up 3 flights of stairs alone and treated his lack of concern like an award. Emily's relationship with the family was more complicated. She was not favored in the way Caleb was, but she learned early that cooperation earned protection. She agreed with Mom, praised Dad, and avoided being the person who delivered bad news. When she needed something, she approached me indirectly. Mom is stressed because my tuition account is weird. Dad thinks the mechanic is taking advantage of Caleb. I know you're busy, but would it destroy you to help? She rarely asked for money directly. She created an emotional environment in which refusing appeared disproportionate. When I said yes, she thanked me sincerely. When I said no, she became distant until I repaired the atmosphere. Caleb never used indirect methods. He believed family assistance was the natural response to his potential. He was handsome, confident, socially effortless, and perpetually one opportunity away from becoming the version of himself everyone had already celebrated. He tried community college, then real estate, then insurance sales, then a home renovation startup with a friend. Each beginning received more enthusiasm than my completed achievements. Mom posted his first business logo with the caption, "Some people are born to build." The business lasted 9 months and left him with $27,000 in debt. I paid $6,000 toward the most urgent account because Dad said a collection action could prevent Caleb from working in construction sales. Caleb promised monthly repayment. He sent 3 payments, then became engaged to Nora, and said wedding savings made repayment temporarily unrealistic. "You know I'm good for it," he told me. I knew only that saying no would make me the subject of the next family group chat. Nora was not like the rest of them. That is important. She came from a comfortable family in Richmond, Virginia. Her parents, Dr. Bennett and Grace Bennett, were financially careful, affectionate without performance, and so direct that my family interpreted normal questions as interrogation. When Nora and Caleb became engaged, Grace asked whether they had created a wedding budget. Caleb replied, "Our families will figure it out." Grace said, "Which families, and what numbers?" Mom later called her cold. I liked her immediately. Nora knew Caleb's income was uneven, but believed his parents were helping with specific expenses and that he had stable savings from previous commissions. She did not know how often his parents meant me. She also did not know that the engagement ring had been purchased after Caleb asked me for an emergency transfer, claiming a work client had delayed a payment and his rent account would overdraft. I learned about the ring when Mom posted a close-up photograph and described it as a symbol of the life Caleb built through determination. I did not ask for the money back. I told myself preserving the engagement was kinder than exposing him. That decision eventually harmed Nora more than the truth would have. 3 years before the Greece trip, Mom needed knee replacement surgery. The surgery itself was mostly covered, but physical therapy, home modifications, and several medications were not. Dad's business had slowed. Caleb was rebuilding. Emily was in school. I paid nearly $11,000 over 6 months. I also used 12 weeks of hybrid work to stay at my parents' house part-time, drive Mom to appointments, prepare meals, and manage Dad's schedule because he described medication timing as women's territory. Mom recovered well. At Christmas, she posted a family photograph captioned, "Grateful for my husband and children who carried me through the hardest year." I was not in the picture because I had taken it. When I commented, and the photographer, Mom deleted my comment and texted, "Please don't make everything about money." I had not mentioned money. The family understood my presence and my financial support as the same accusation because both reminded them something had been received. After Mom's recovery, I returned fully to Charlotte. I purchased a small townhome near the hospital network's regional office. 2 bedrooms, narrow kitchen, tiny patio, and a mortgage I could manage without anyone else's signature. Dad walked through it and said, "This is perfect for one person." Mom suggested I keep the second bedroom available because she might need future surgery. Caleb asked whether he and Nora could use it during Charlotte football weekends. Emily said it would be ideal for girls' weekends if I bought a better couch. Nobody asked what I wanted the room to become. I turned it into an office and art space. Mom called that selfish use of family space. Around the same time, I ended a 5-year relationship with a man named Owen. We had been engaged for 8 months when I discovered he had been sharing intimate messages with a coworker and describing me as dependable but emotionally exhausting. I ended the engagement quietly. My family's first response was not concern. Mom asked whether deposits were refundable. Dad said, "You have always been too quick to cut people off." Caleb joked that I could return the ring and finally repay myself for supporting everyone else. Everyone laughed except Nora. She found me in the kitchen later and asked, "Are you okay?" I cried because the question had become rare enough to feel like generosity. After the breakup, my family began treating my unmarried status as a permanent logistical category. Holiday bedrooms went to couples. Restaurant reservations were made in even numbers. Then I was told to pull up a chair. Family photographs grouped couples together and placed me beside Mom, so the composition felt balanced. At Caleb and Nora's engagement dinner, my place card was at the end of the table beside the restaurant's service station because the central seats were for couples and parents. I paid the final catering balance when Dad's card declined. Mom thanked me privately and later posted, "Nothing makes a mother prouder than watching two families come together." I appeared in one photograph holding someone else's coat. The Greece trip began as a 40th anniversary celebration for my parents. Mom had always dreamed of visiting Athens and the islands. She had a folder of magazine pages from the early 2000s, and Dad enjoyed telling people he would take her when business settled. Business never settled. Instead, the dream expanded. Caleb suggested using the trip for engagement photographs in Santorini. Emily wanted to bring Mason because Europe alone as the single sibling would be awkward. I pointed out that I would also be single. She replied, "You're different. You like doing things alone." Nora wanted her parents included for part of the trip, but Grace declined because she did not want to intrude on a Reynolds anniversary vacation. That left 6 travelers: Dad, Mom, Caleb, Nora, Emily, and Mason. I learned the trip had become real during a Sunday breakfast at my parents' house. I had driven from Charlotte the night before, because Mom said Dad's blood pressure medication needed review, and she wanted help organizing insurance statements. I sorted the paperwork until almost midnight. The next morning, Dad set down his coffee and smiled. "We booked Greece," Mom clapped. Emily raised her phone to show an itinerary. Caleb said he had found the perfect photographer. Nora looked at me with confusion. "Are you coming?" Before I answered, Dad said, "No, just the six of us." The sentence landed lightly, as though the number had been chosen by the table dimensions. "Why?" I asked. Mom buttered toast. "Honey, this trip has developed into a couples and family unit kind of experience. I'm your daughter." "Of course, then what kind of unit am I?" Dad sighed. "Don't turn wording into drama." Emily said, "You hate organized tours anyway. Nobody asked me." Caleb leaned back. "Ava, you'd be miserable watching couples take pictures for 12 days. Nora said, "She could bring a friend." Mom's smile tightened. "The villas are already arranged." "When did you book?" I asked. Silence moved around the table. Caleb looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mom. Emily focused on her phone. Nora noticed. "How long have you been planning this?" Dad said, "A few weeks." I had spoken to Mom almost every day during those weeks. She had asked me about passport renewal timing, international phone plans, credit card insurance, and the safest way to book ferry tickets. I had answered every question without knowing the trip was theirs. "You used my advice." Mom looked wounded. "Because you're good at travel logistics. But you never told me I wasn't included. We were trying to find the kindest moment." "Breakfast?" Dad put down his fork. "You recently ended an engagement. Your mother and I thought the trip might be painful. You decided exclusion would hurt less? You are making this about rejection. What is it about? Our anniversary?" "Paid for by whom?" The question escaped before I knew why I was asking. Dad's expression changed. Small. Quick. Then he smiled. "Everything is handled." I should have recognized that phrase. In our family, handled usually meant someone had been volunteered without receiving the message yet. Caleb said, "Besides, somebody has to stay home and keep the family emergency fund operational." Everyone laughed. Nora did not. I smiled because old habits survive even after humiliation stops feeling familiar. "Okay," I said. Mom relaxed. Dad returned to coffee. The atmosphere improved instantly because my acceptance had restored everyone else's comfort. Before I left, Mom handed me a printed itinerary and asked whether I could confirm the ferry times. "You still want me to help?" She blinked. "You're the one who understands this stuff." I placed the itinerary on the counter. "Ask the travel agent." "Ava, I need to drive home." Dad followed me to the hallway. "Do not punish your mother because the trip is not structured around you." "I am not punishing anyone." "Then check the ferries." I looked at him. "No." His face tightened. One syllable had changed the weather. "You're being childish." "I'm leaving." During the drive to Charlotte, my phone filled with family group messages. Emily asked whether compression socks were necessary. Mason wanted to know whether his phone plan included grease. Caleb asked whether a photographer's invoice looked legitimate. Mom sent 3 hotel links and wrote, "Which neighborhood seems safest?" Dad called twice. I ignored everything. At work Monday, I handled a delayed shipment of surgical gloves, a refrigeration issue at a rural pharmacy, and a vendor dispute involving $28,000. Nobody called me childish for requiring authorization. Nobody described documentation as emotional. By Thursday night, I had almost convinced myself the trip was simply another painful family decision I would eventually stop caring about. Then my banking app lit up. $13,480 charged by Meridian Signature Travel. The alert categorized it as international leisure. I opened the details. My personal travel card ended in 4,408. The same card I had used 2 years earlier to book Mom's recovery trip to a specialist in Baltimore. Dad had taken a photograph of the front and back because the agency needed payment while I was in a meeting. I had never added him as an authorized user. I had replaced the physical card, but retained the account number through a digital wallet used by the travel service. The invoice showed 6 passengers, 2 Athens hotel rooms, 2 Santorini villas, ferry transfers, private airport pickup, a vineyard dinner, an engagement photography package. Initial balance, $13,480. Remaining balance due in 11 days, $14,920. Total package, $28,400. My name did not appear as traveler, host, anniversary guest, emergency contact, or family member. It appeared once, payment authorization Ava Reynolds. I sat at my kitchen table in the townhouse my mother called selfishly underused and read the invoice until the letters lost meaning. I could hear my neighbor's washing machine through the wall. My office lamp reflected in the window. On the desk sat the framed photograph from my college graduation. Mom, Dad, Caleb, Emily, and me. Everyone smiling. I had spent years treating that photograph as proof the family loved me equally. Now I understood photographs prove only who stood still for half a second. I called Meridian Signature Travel. The agent, Lauren Perez, asked for the booking reference. When I provided it, her tone became careful. Miss Reynolds, you are listed as the financial sponsor. Did I authorize the charge personally? The lead traveler confirmed you had approved use of the saved payment method. Who is the lead traveler? Thomas Reynolds. Did you speak to me? No. Did you send an approval link? It was sent to the email used for the original family profile. The profile still used an old email address my father could access because I had created it years earlier for shared travel documents. I did not approve this booking. She became silent. Understood. Would you like us to suspend the reservation while payment authorization is reviewed? I looked at the passenger list. 6 names. No Ava. Yes. The deposits may become non-refundable if not replaced. They can replace them. Would you like us to notify Mr. Reynolds? Your system can notify him. Then I opened my bank app and froze the card. I changed the password on the travel profile. Removed every saved traveler, except myself. Changed the recovery email. Activated 2-factor authentication. Reviewed every shared service attached to my name. Streaming plans. Warehouse club membership. Hotel rewards. Rental car account. Emergency credit card. Airport lounge access. The phone plan I still shared with Mom because she had once said switching carriers confused her. The roadside assistance plan Caleb had used 4 times. The grocery delivery membership Emily used at her apartment. Each account contained a small version of the same arrangement. My name carried the responsibility while family membership distributed the convenience. I removed authorized users where possible and created transfer deadlines where immediate cancellation would affect phone service or health needs. I did not shut off Mom's medication portal. I did not cancel Dad's business software during active jobs. I separated necessities from benefits. Boundaries are not strongest when they create maximum pain. They are strongest when they accurately end what never should have been assumed. At 12:18, the first declined charge arrived. $1,800 for upgraded ferry cabins. At 12:26, $640 for luggage forwarding. At 12:31, $1,150 for the Santorini photography deposit. The photographer package was for Caleb and Nora. I imagined Nora standing on a white terrace in a dress she had selected, believing her fiancé's family had funded the experience honestly. I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered honesty required, allowing her to discover the truth. I called the bank. The representative asked whether the card had been stolen. The number was used by a family member without permission. Do you wish to dispute the charge? The old version of me would have hesitated because words like fraud and unauthorized felt too severe when attached to Dad. But actions do not become harmless because the person who committed them taught you to say please. Yes. I downloaded the itinerary, transaction details, email history, and family messages. I created a folder called Grease Authorization, not Revenge, not Family Theft. Authorization. Facts did not need dramatic titles. At 6:12 the next morning, Dad called. I watched the phone ring until voicemail. He called again. Then Mom. Then Emily. Then Caleb. The family group erupted. Dad. The travel company says payment is suspended. Emily. My ferry reservation disappeared. Caleb. Did anyone change the account? Mom. Ava. Please call. Dad. This is not the time for games. Nora sent me a private message. Do you know what is happening with Greece? I wrote, ask Caleb and Dad which payment method they used. She replied, why? I did not answer. At 6:45, Dad sent one message directly, unfreeze the family card before you go to work. Family card. The phrase was almost beautiful in its entitlement. I wrote, there is no family card. You used my personal account without permission for a trip you excluded me from. The charge is disputed. He called instantly. I answered, what the hell are you doing? No greeting. Protecting my account. We were going to reimburse you. When? After the trip. With what payment source? That is not your concern. Then neither is your vacation. Your mother has dreamed about this for 20 years. Then why didn't you save for it? Silence. Ava, do not speak to me like I am a stranger. A stranger would have asked before using the card. You have paid for family travel before, when I was invited and agreed. We assumed? You lied to the agency. His breathing changed. Be careful. Did you tell them I approved? I said the family payment was authorized. By whom? This is unnecessary. By whom? I knew you would help once everything was booked. There it was. Booking first was not a mistake. It was pressure. He believed I would preserve the trip to avoid being blamed for its collapse. You knew I had not agreed. We knew you were emotional about not going. So you used my card before telling me I wasn't going? The deposit deadline came first. I closed my eyes. Do not attempt another charge. Do not contact the bank pretending to be me. Do not use my email or rewards profile. You are destroying your mother's anniversary over hurt feelings. You built it on money that was not yours. Family money, my money. You have more than the rest of us. That does not make it communal. He lowered his voice. If you force me to explain this to Nora's parents, you will damage Caleb's engagement. Then explain accurately. He hung up. Mom called 5 minutes later. Her disappointment arrived softly, polished over decades. Honey, why did you do this without talking to us? Dad booked the trip without talking to me. He assumed you would want to contribute to our anniversary. He announced I was excluded after charging my card. The exact sequence does not change his intention. It changes consent. Please stop using office words. Authorization is not an office word when someone uses your card. She began crying. I finally had something beautiful to look forward to. The tears were real. So was the manipulation. I am sorry the trip may not happen. Then restore the payment. No. You can afford it. That is not the question. What is the question? Whether you believe I deserve a choice. Silence. Of course. Then accept mine. She became angry. You are choosing money over family. You chose a family trip that excluded the person paying. We were trying to protect you from feeling alone. By leaving me alone? You twist everything. No, Mom, I am finally repeating it without translating. She ended the call. I went to work. By 9, I had 26 missed calls. Caleb left a voicemail. Nora's parents are asking whether the trip is paid. Fix this before you make me look like a liar. Emily wrote, Dad wants me to put the balance on my card and I don't have the limit. Can you please stop proving a point? Mason wrote nothing. Nora messaged again. Caleb says your bank flagged a normal charge. Is that true? I answered. No, I did not approve the booking. My card was used after I was told I was not included. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then returned. I didn't know you were paying. I know. Did Caleb? Ask him. At noon, Nora called. Her voice was quiet. He says your father handled payment, and Caleb assumed it was your parents' anniversary savings. My parents do not have $28,000 available. I asked him that. What did he say? That your family always finds a way. I laughed once. I am the way. She became silent. Ava, I'm sorry. You did not use the card. I knew you weren't invited. That mattered. Why didn't you ask me? I did at breakfast, then everyone acted like it was already settled, and I didn't want to create tension. Silence also created something. I know. Do you? I think I'm starting to. She told me Grace and Dr. Bennett had believed the Reynolds family was paying through a savings account. Caleb had described the Santorini photographer as a gift from his parents. Nora had posted about the trip publicly. Her colleagues knew. Her parents had purchased travel insurance. I feel stupid, she said. You were lied to. I ignored things that did not make sense because I wanted the trip. Honest, what are you going to do? Asked Caleb for the full truth. Good. The travel company suspended all reservations that afternoon. The hotels provided 24 hours for a replacement payment method. Dad attempted to use a business card. It declined because the limit was too low. He asked Emily to request a credit increase. She refused after learning the total package cost. He asked Caleb. Caleb's available credit was already committed to wedding expenses. Mom called her sister, who asked why a couple nearing retirement had booked a $28,000 vacation without funds. Dad described that question later as humiliating. My exclusion had not humiliated him. Using my card had not humiliated him. Being asked to explain affordability did. 2 days after the charge, the villa holds were released. The photographer canceled. The vineyard dinner disappeared. The travel agency retained a portion of the initial booking fee, pending the bank dispute, and requested a valid payment method for any remaining cancellation costs. Dad sent me a text. You have ruined a once-in-a-lifetime family memory. I replied, I stopped paying for a memory I was told I did not belong in. He responded, same thing. That sentence detached something inside me. I had spent years believing if I explained pain precisely enough, the people who caused it would finally recognize the difference between themselves and the consequence. Dad recognized the difference. He simply believed my role was to erase it. The trip's collapse exposed other things. Nora postponed the engagement photo session entirely and asked Caleb for bank statements related to wedding savings. He became furious that she did not trust him. She asked why trust should remain untouched after learning his family had booked an international trip using unauthorized money. Caleb accused me of turning her against him. I said, the receipt did most of the work. Emily called crying because Dad had asked her to use her emergency savings to preserve the Athens hotel. He said you're punishing everyone because you're jealous we have partners. What did you say? Nothing. Then what happened? He said at least you were useful before. The words became quiet between us. Did he really say that? Yes. I'm sorry. Has he said things like that to you? In different sentences. She began crying harder. For years, Emily had benefited from my role without fully recognizing it, because usefulness looked like personality when someone else carried it. What am I supposed to do? She asked. Say no. Then he'll be angry. Yes. You say it like that's survivable. It is. How do you know? Because he's angry with me now, and I am still here. She refused to use her savings. Dad stopped speaking to her for 4 days. She called me each day, not to apologize, but because silence from him felt unbearable. On the 4th day, I said, Emily, I cannot become the person who manages Dad's punishment after you finally set a boundary. I just need my sister. Then talk to me as my sister, not as someone responsible for fixing the atmosphere. Silence. I knew about the trip for 2 months, she said. I know. No, I mean, I knew they were using your travel profile. My chest tightened. Did you know about the card? Dad said you had agreed to help. Did that sound true after breakfast? No. Why didn't you warn me? I thought if you knew earlier, you'd cancel everything. So you chose the trip, she cried. Yes. Honest enough to hurt. I am sorry. Thank you. Do you hate me? No. Will you forgive me? Probably. When? Do not turn my forgiveness into another deadline I have to manage for you, she whispered. Okay. The family planned a Thanksgiving confrontation after Greece was officially canceled. Mom called it reconciliation. Dad called it settling things. Caleb called it stopping the damage before the wedding. I did not want to attend. My closest friend, Serena Walsh, asked why I was considering it. Serena worked with me at the hospital network and had listened to the entire Greece disaster without once asking whether I could simply pay and address the feelings later. Because they invited Nora's parents, I said. Why does that matter? Dad wants me to tell them it was a misunderstanding. Was it? No. Then? If I don't go, he will tell the story without me. Serena stirred her coffee. He will tell his version whether you attend or not. I know. What do you actually want? To say no once in front of the room where I have always been pressured into yes. She nodded. That is different. Are you telling me not to go? I'm telling you to leave the moment the room requires you to abandon yourself to stay. Thanksgiving took place at my parents' house. 24 people attended. Grandparents were gone, but aunts, uncles, cousins, family friends, Nora's parents, and Mason's mother had been invited. The house smelled like turkey, cinnamon, and the particular anxiety Mom covered with scented candles. Family photographs lined the hallway. Caleb's engagement portrait occupied the center table. Emily's graduate school acceptance letter was framed near the kitchen. My promotion announcement was nowhere, though I had sent Mom a copy. At the dining table, place cards had been arranged. Dad and Mom sat in the center. Caleb and Nora sat beside the Bennetts. Emily and Mason sat together. My card was at the far end beside two cousins in college. Why am I here? I asked Mom. She looked at the arrangement. We needed to keep couples together. Of course, do not start. I asked one question. She whispered, Today is about healing. Then why does healing have assigned rankings? She walked away. I moved my place card beside Serena's empty imaginary chair in my head and almost laughed. I had come alone because I wanted no witness I would feel obligated to protect. Dinner began normally. Dad prayed for forgiveness, unity, and the humility to put family above pride. Several people said amen. Nora stared at her plate. Caleb kept his hand on the back of her chair, not touching her but marking the space. Grace Bennett asked me quietly, Are you doing all right? I'm here. That wasn't my question. I looked at her. No, not yet. Thank you for answering. During dinner, relatives discussed the canceled trip in careful euphemisms: booking confusion, banking problem, timing issue. Someone joked that Greece would still exist next year. Dad said, Assuming everybody learned something. I said nothing. After the plates were cleared, but before dessert, Dad tapped his glass. We need to address the situation that has divided this family. He stood with a typed page in his hand. Caleb placed a second copy in front of Nora's parents. Mom placed one near me. This is a simple statement, Dad continued. Ava will send it to the travel agency, her bank, and anyone who has received incomplete information. It explains that the card was used through a family profile with her general prior permission, that no theft occurred, and that the suspension resulted from an emotional misunderstanding after travel arrangements were finalized. I read the page. It described the Greece trip as a gift jointly discussed by the Reynolds children. It said I had temporarily withdrawn authorization during a personal disagreement. It requested that the bank dispute be canceled. It also stated that Caleb and Nora had no prior knowledge of payment concerns. Caleb's line was clean. Dad's was softened. My boundary became an emotional event. I am not signing this, I said. Dad remained standing. Read it fully. I did. Then you understand it protects everyone. It lies, Mom whispered. Ava, I never gave general permission, Dad said. You allowed the card to remain on the family profile. A saved payment method is not standing consent. There are relatives here who do not need corporate terminology. Grace Bennett said. Authorization is not corporate terminology. Dad looked at her. This is a family discussion. My daughter's engagement is being protected by the proposed statement. I am reading what you gave us. Caleb's face tightened. Grace, my father is trying to repair this, Nora said. By asking Ava to say she agreed when she didn't? He turned toward her. We have discussed this. You told me she had authorized family travel before. She had. Not this trip. Silence. Dad pushed the paper toward me. You are the only person who can stop this from damaging Caleb's future marriage. Caleb knew I was excluded. That has nothing to do with the payment. It has everything to do with it. Why? Because he watched you announce I was not family enough to travel with while knowing my account was funding the trip. Caleb stood. I did not know it was your card until after breakfast. When did you learn? That afternoon. Did you tell me? Dad said he had handled it. Did you ask whether I approved? I assumed. Everyone keeps using that word to describe the moment they chose not to ask. Mom began crying. We are not monsters. I did not say you are. You created a fraud dispute against your father. Because he falsely told an agency I authorized $13,000. You could have spoken to us first. You could have spoken to me before booking. The deadline was short. My consent was shorter? Aunt Melissa said. Ava, surely your father planned to repay you. I opened the folder I had brought. Would everyone like to discuss repayment? Dad's face changed. Do not turn Thanksgiving into an accounting meeting. You turned it into a statement review. I removed several pages and placed them on the table. Not every receipt I had ever paid. Only the clearest pattern. Mom's medical expenses, roof repair, Caleb's business debt, Emily's tuition deposit, engagement dinner balance, truck repair, phone bills, travel profiles, $41,600 over 5 years, excluding groceries, gifts, and smaller transfers. Payments returned, $4,200. This is disgusting, Dad said. You kept records on your parents. The bank kept records. I downloaded them. We raised you. Yes, we sacrificed for you. Yes. Then how can you sit there putting a price on family? I am not pricing love. I am identifying expenses you keep calling love after I pay them. Mom cried harder. We would have helped you. When? Whenever you needed us. I needed you after my engagement ended. We were there. You asked about refunded deposits, because money was part of the crisis. I needed help moving into my townhouse. Dad said. You never asked. You told me you did not worry about me. That was a compliment. It was permission to give everyone else more. Emily covered her mouth. Caleb rolled his eyes. Here comes the childhood trial. No, I said. This is the family story you keep editing whenever the current receipt becomes uncomfortable. Dad lowered his voice. Sign the statement. No. Cancel the dispute. No. The agency may pursue the cancellation balance against the people who booked it. Your mother's credit cannot absorb that. Then she should not have booked a $28,000 trip, Mom said. Your father did the booking. You accepted the trip. I trusted him. Why is trust an excuse for you but a duty for me? Silence. Nora took the statement and tore it in half. Caleb stared. What are you doing? I am not letting your family use my engagement as leverage to make your sister lie. This could affect the wedding. The wedding is already affected. Nora. You told me your parents paid the deposit. I believed they would. No, you believed Ava would. Caleb's face reddened. Do not embarrass me in front of everyone. Nora laughed sadly. That sentence seems hereditary. Grace placed her hand over Nora's. Dr. Bennett remained quiet, but his expression told me he had reached a conclusion. Caleb turned to me. Are you happy now? No. You wanted her to turn against me. I wanted my card protected. You always act morally superior because you have a salary and spreadsheets. You had a salary when Dad asked you to fund the remaining grease balance. I have wedding expenses. I had a mortgage when you needed a truck. You offered. Mom called it an emergency. It was. And my exclusion? Not everything is about you. My card was. Dad slammed his palm on the table. Silverware jumped. Enough, Ava. You will sign this before leaving. The old tone. The one that had once made my body apologize before my mind understood the accusation. I looked at the hand on the table, then at his face. No. One word. No explanation. He stared. Then you are choosing to walk away from this family, Mom whispered. Thomas, he continued. A daughter who can watch her mother lose a dream trip, damage her brother's engagement, humiliate her sister, and expose private help to relatives over money is not acting like family. Something inside me became still. You are right. His expression shifted. What? I have not been acting like family. I stood. I have been acting like infrastructure. Nobody moved. When the roof leaked, I was the repair account. When Caleb's business failed, I was the emergency loan. When Mom needed surgery, I was the deductible, driver, meal service, and medication schedule. When Emily needed tuition, I was the deposit. When the engagement dinner exceeded the budget, I was the card. When Greece needed advice, I was the travel planner. When Greece needed payment, I was the family account. But when the photograph was taken, when rooms were assigned, when trips were planned, when couples were seated, I was the independent one, the person who would understand. Mom said, "We appreciate you. Appreciation without choice is decoration." Dad pointed toward the door. Then go. I am. Do not expect us to chase you. You never chased me. You sent payment requests. I turned to Emily. I love you. I am not continuing the phone plan, delivery accounts, or tuition transfers after the end of next month. I will send instructions for moving everything into your name. She cried but nodded. Okay. Do not ask me to manage Dad's response. Okay. I looked at Caleb. The 6,000 from your business and the truck repair remain unpaid. I am not pursuing you. I am also not lending you anything again. Keep your money. That is the plan. Nora lowered her eyes to hide a reaction that might have been a laugh. I looked at Mom. Your medical portal stays active until you transfer it. I will send copies of your records. I am not managing appointments after December. You are abandoning me. You recovered 3 years ago. I am still your mother. Yes, that is not a job description for me. Then Dad, do not use my name, email, card, address, employer information, travel profiles, reward accounts, or credit for anything. Any attempt will be reported immediately. You would report your own father? I already reported an unauthorized charge. Relationship titles do not change the action. I picked up my coat. Mom said, "If you leave now, do not expect a place at Christmas." For years, that threat would have broken me. Being included had been the reward that kept me useful. Now I understood their place at Christmas had never been free either. Then I will spend Christmas somewhere. My seat is not tied to a credit limit. I left before dessert. Serena waited in her car 2 streets away because she had refused to let me drive home alone after the confrontation. When I opened the passenger door, she looked at my face. "Did you abandon yourself?" "No." "Then get in." I cried for almost an hour, not because I regretted the boundary, because boundaries do not erase the fact that you wanted the people behind them to choose differently. Serena drove to a quiet park, turned off the engine, and let me cry without explaining why leaving was brave. Courage is exhausting when the reward is grief. Nora postponed the wedding 2 days later. She did not end the engagement immediately. She asked Caleb for complete financial transparency, counseling, and a clear explanation of every expense he had told her his parents covered. Caleb accused me of poisoning her. Nora replied in the family chat. Ava did not create the lie. She stopped paying for it. Caleb left the chat. Grace called me. "I want you to know Nora is not asking you to fix this." The sentence brought tears instantly. "Thank you. She also wants to apologize when you are ready." For what? Knowing you were excluded and allowing everyone to treat it as normal. She did ask once, then accepted the answer that preserved her trip. Honest parents teach honesty even when it makes their child look imperfect. I will talk to her later. The travel dispute resolved after the agency confirmed no direct authorization had been obtained. Dad and Mom remained responsible for portions of the booking fees and non-refundable services. The total was painful but not ruinous. Dad described it publicly as money I had forced them to lose. Several relatives repeated his version until Grace asked one simple question at church. Why was Ava's card on a trip she was not attending? The story became harder to summarize politely after that. Emily transferred her phone, delivery memberships, and subscriptions into her own name. The first month felt expensive. I did not realize how much you covered, she admitted. That was part of the problem. She found a roommate, reduced spending, and worked additional classes. Dad stopped speaking to her after she refused to publicly support his version of Greece. She called me one evening. I want to apologize again. For what specifically? Knowing about the trip. Believing you would eventually pay, because you always did. Letting Dad call your card the family card. Accepting things without asking how they were funded. And only understanding when he started asking me. Thank you. Do you forgive me? Yes. Does that mean we're normal? We were never normal, she laughed through tears. Fair. It means we can build something that does not require me to be responsible for your comfort. Okay, we began meeting once a month. Sometimes dinner. Sometimes a walk. No money discussions. When she needed help understanding a student loan form, she asked whether I had time and accepted when I said not that night. That ordinary acceptance repaired more than a dramatic speech could. Caleb's apology came later and badly. I am sorry the trip became such a big issue. I did not respond. Then, I am sorry you felt excluded. No response. Then, a 6-minute voicemail blaming Dad, Mom, wedding pressure, and my extreme reaction. I deleted it. Nora ended the engagement 4 months after Thanksgiving. Greece was not the only reason. Once she began asking questions, she discovered Caleb had hidden credit card balances, exaggerated savings, and allowed her family to believe he had contributed more to wedding deposits than he had. None of it was catastrophic alone. Together, it revealed a man who believed the appearance of readiness could substitute for the work of becoming ready. Caleb said Nora abandoned him over my accusations. Nora told him, I left because every fact became someone else's fault. She returned the ring. He tried to sell it and discovered the financing balance exceeded its resale value. I felt no joy. Caleb had been raised inside the same system that had shaped me differently. Dad softened his consequences. Mom defended him from shame. I was praised for endurance. He was praised for potential. Neither role had been healthy. Understanding that did not require reopening my wallet. My parents remained angry for almost a year. Mom sent messages through relatives. Your father's blood pressure is worse. The house feels empty. We cannot believe one trip erased 34 years. I replied once. One trip did not erase anything. It revealed the arrangement I am no longer willing to continue. After that, I blocked messages carried through other people. Dad mailed the typed Thanksgiving statement to my townhome with a note. I hope one day you see how easily this could have been fixed. I wrote beneath his sentence, by lying, and placed the page in a file I never mailed back. 6 months after Greece, I took my first vacation that had not been planned around someone else. Not Greece. I did not want my freedom to become a response to their destination. Serena and I rented a small house on the coast of Maine for 1 week in September. We hiked, ate lobster rolls, read on the porch, and spent an entire rainy day assembling a puzzle neither of us liked enough to finish. Nobody asked me to cover a larger room. Nobody used my points without asking. When Serena booked a whale-watching tour, she sent me the cost and said, "Your half is this. Do you want to go?" The question nearly made me cry. Choice had become that precious. At the end of the trip, we took a photograph on the porch. I automatically reached for the phone. Serena handed it to a stranger. "You are in this one." I stood beside her. My hair was wet. My jacket looked bulky. The ocean behind us was gray. It remains my favorite photograph because nobody needed me behind the camera. I began therapy after returning. I expected to spend sessions describing Dad's entitlement. Instead, I spent months examining why I had treated usefulness as identity. Part of me liked being the person who could solve everything. Competence protected me from rejection, until people rejected the person and kept requesting the competence. I had also used money to maintain closeness. Every transfer gave me a temporary role. Every emergency produced calls, gratitude, and a brief sense of belonging. Then the emergency ended, and I returned to the side table. My family exploited that pattern, but I had participated because being needed felt safer than asking whether I was loved without service. I stopped volunteering solutions before people asked. At work, that made me a better manager. At home, it made silence uncomfortable. Mom's birthday arrived. I sent a card. No money, flowers, restaurant reservation, or spa certificate. She texted, "Just a card?" I did not answer. At Christmas, Emily invited me to her apartment. 4 people. Emily, Mason, Serena, and me. We cooked too much food in a kitchen barely large enough for 2. Mason paid for groceries after asking everyone to contribute equally. Emily handed me a small wrapped box. Inside was the family streaming device remote I had purchased years earlier. "Symbolic return," she said. "Keep it." "No, I have my own account now." We laughed. At 9, Dad posted a photograph of himself, Mom, Caleb, and several cousins around the old Christmas tree. Caption: "Real family stays." I looked for less than a minute, then I muted his account. The photograph hurt. Muting it did not mean I was weak. Exposure is not moral courage when someone repeatedly uses public images to reopen private wounds. Dad's first meaningful action arrived 14 months after the Greece charge. A check for $300 appeared in my mailbox with a note. Payment toward travel fees. The amount did not correspond to anything he owed me directly because the disputed charge had been reversed. I called him. "What is this?" "Repayment." "For what?" "Everything." $300? He became defensive. "It is what I can afford monthly." "Are you apologizing?" Silence. "I am trying to make things right. Money is not the only thing wrong. You made money the issue." "No, you used money. The issue was consent and exclusion." "I know." The words were quiet. I almost missed them. "What do you know?" "I knew you had not agreed." First honest admission. "Why did you use it?" "Because the booking deadline was ending. Your mother had told everyone about the trip. Caleb had promised Nora the photographs. And I believed once everything was arranged, you would not let it fall apart. You relied on my fear of disappointing everyone." "Yes." "Did excluding me matter?" "I told myself you would not enjoy it." "Did you believe that?" "Not completely." "Then why?" He breathed for a long time. "The villas worked in pairs. Your mother thought seeing couples would make you sad. Caleb did not want tension about Owen. Emily wanted Mason. I chose the arrangement that created the least argument in the room." "I was not in the room." "Exactly. There it was. You chose the person whose pain would arrive later, and privately." "Yes." "Why send money now?" "Because your mother keeps saying you abandoned us, and I know that is not the first thing that happened." "Not an apology yet. A crack in the family story. Do not send random checks unless you include what they are for," I said. "Why?" "Because accountability needs clarity." The next month, another check arrived. Note: roof repayment, installment 1. Then another. Caleb, business transfer, parental portion. He had gone through old messages. The payments were small and incomplete. I accepted them because they acknowledged the history, not because I expected full reimbursement. Mom hated the repayments. She called them buying access. Dad told her, "No, it is returning money we said we would return." That sentence created weeks of conflict. Their marriage had depended partly on Dad making promises and Mom recruiting me to absorb the gap. Once he began naming the gap, both had to confront their roles. Mom's apology came through a letter almost 2 years after Thanksgiving. I called you independent because it sounded kinder than admitting I gave more care to the children who made their needs impossible to ignore. You were easier to disappoint. You cried privately, recovered quickly, and kept helping. I treated those qualities as permission. When Greece was planned, I knew you would be hurt. I accepted the exclusion because I wanted the trip, and I accepted your card because I believed your hurt would fade faster than my embarrassment if the booking failed. I am sorry. I stopped reading and cried. The letter continued. I also told myself the trip protected you after your broken engagement. That explanation allowed me to believe I was still a good mother, while choosing something I wanted over your dignity. I understand now that protection without your consent was another decision made around you. I do not expect an invitation into your life because I wrote this. No request, no but. I waited 5 months before answering. Thank you for naming what happened. I am not ready for regular contact. Please continue respecting that. Mom wrote. I will. She did. That was new. No birthday guilt. No messages through Emily. No sudden medical emergency that became my responsibility. Another year passed. Dad continued monthly repayments until I asked him to stop after the most specific debts were covered. You still owe more, he said. Financially, yes. Then why stop? Because I do not want every conversation tied to a balance. Use the money for retirement. Keep showing me you understand no. Is that enough? It is necessary. We began meeting occasionally at public places. Coffee, lunch. No expectation I would visit the house. He once asked whether I could review a business vendor agreement. I said no. He became quiet, then replied, okay. That was the first time my refusal ended the request without a lecture. It mattered more than the checks. Mom and I met later, initially with a family therapist. During the first session, she said, I miss my daughter. I replied, you missed me while I was present. She cried. That is true. No defense. Why didn't you invite me? I asked. Because the trip looked balanced with 3 couples. You and Dad, Caleb and Nora, Emily and Mason. Yes. And I looked like what? She covered her mouth. Evidence that the family was not as complete as I wanted the pictures to look. That was the truth beneath couples and family units. I was not excluded because they feared I would feel alone. I was excluded because my singleness disrupted the image Mom wanted to post. And the card? You were the person who made beautiful things possible, but not the person beautiful things were for. She nodded. Yes. We did not hug after that session. Some truths require space before touch. Our relationship became small and careful. Mom learned to ask without attaching disappointment. Would you like to come for lunch Sunday? No, not this week. Okay. The first several times, she said okay. I waited for the second message. It did not come. Eventually, I accepted some invitations. I never resumed managing her medical appointments. She hired a patient advocate through her insurance and discovered competent help could be purchased rather than extracted from a daughter. Emily completed her graduate program. At her graduation, she invited me, Mom, Dad, and Caleb separately. No forced family photograph. After the ceremony, she asked, can we take one together? Who? You and me first. We did. Then Mom joined after asking. Dad joined. Caleb remained across the courtyard. Emily looked toward him. Do you want him? It's your graduation. That is not an answer. I am okay with one picture. He joined. The photograph did not mean restoration. It meant we stood together for 4 seconds without pretending the previous years had disappeared. Emily posted it privately to a small family group and wrote, thank you to the people who showed up today. No whole family. No real family. People who showed up. Better words. Caleb took the longest to change. For almost 3 years, he described Nora's departure as something I caused. His career became unstable after the construction company reorganized. He asked Dad for help and discovered Dad had stopped promising money he did not have. He asked Mom, who had begun therapy, and said she could provide meals but not cash. He asked Emily, who said no. Eventually, he called me. I need $5,000 to prevent an eviction. Are you being evicted? Not exactly. I am behind, and the landlord sent a notice. What is your plan? I am interviewing. What happened to your commissions? A deal collapsed. Do you have a payment arrangement? Ava, I need my sister, not a procurement interview. You called me for money. I called because family helps. I can help you review a budget and locate short-term rental assistance. I am not lending money. He became silent. You really are never going to let Greece go. This is not about Greece. It is always about Greece. No, Greece revealed that you believe my money is family property and my presence is optional. Your current request has the same structure. He cursed and hung up. 2 weeks later, he moved into a smaller apartment. He survived. 6 months after that, he sent an email. I thought your boundaries were revenge because every one of them made my life harder. I never asked whether your old lack of boundaries had made my life easier at your expense. When Dad used your card, I knew that afternoon. I did not tell you because I wanted the trip and the photographs. I also thought being engaged made my place in the family more legitimate than yours. I am ashamed of that. I am sorry. He included no request. I answered, thank you. A year later, we met for lunch. He had started therapy and moved into a salaried sales support position with lower prestige and steadier income. Do you think Nora would have stayed if Greece had not happened? He asked. I don't know. Do you? I think Greece gave her a reason to ask questions she already needed to ask. He nodded. I lied because I wanted to look ready for marriage. Were you? No. Are you now? Not yet. Honest. Do you forgive me? Some days. Will we be close? I don't know. Does money remain off the table? Yes. He accepted it. That acceptance created more possibility than any repayment could. I am 40 now. I still work in hospital procurement, though I lead a larger emergency resilience team. Serena married a woman named Beth, and I stood beside them at a small garden ceremony where every guest seat had been chosen because the couple wanted that person present, not because the seating photograph needed symmetry. Emily and Mason married at a courthouse followed by dinner. They paid for it themselves. Dad offered $2,000. Emily asked whether he could afford it. He admitted he could afford $500. She accepted $500. That exchange showed more family health than Greece ever could. Caleb remains single and steadier. Mom and Dad are still married. Their home is quieter because fewer emergencies are manufactured there. I visit 4 or 5 times a year. I stay at a hotel unless invited to stay and genuinely want to. Nobody calls my townhome family overflow anymore. The second bedroom remains an office, though I added a fold-out sofa for guests I choose. I eventually dated again. A man named Jordan Lee, a physical therapist who understood that independence is not proof a person prefers isolation. On our first holiday together, he asked, "Do you want to spend Thanksgiving with my family, yours, or somewhere else?" 3 options. A question. Choice. I cried so unexpectedly he thought he had said something wrong. We have been together 2 years. We have not rushed marriage. My family likes him but does not receive access through him. The first time Dad asked Jordan whether he could convince me to attend a reunion, Jordan replied, Ava makes her own decisions. Dad said, fair enough. Growth. I finally traveled to Greece last spring. Not to reclaim the trip. Not to prove I could go without them. Jordan and I chose it after comparing 3 destinations. We spent 4 days in Athens, then traveled to Naxos instead of Santorini, because neither of us wanted to build a vacation around old symbolism. At a small restaurant overlooking the water, the server asked whether we were celebrating anything. Jordan looked at me. Are we? I thought about the banking alert, the frozen card, Thanksgiving, the letters, the coffee meetings, the first time Mom accepted no, the first time Dad repaid something without demanding forgiveness, Emily learning that neutrality was still a choice, Caleb learning that inconvenience was not betrayal. Yes, I said. What? Jordan asked. being here because I chose it? We raised our glasses. No family caption, no performance, just dinner. The next morning, my banking app sent a travel alert. $186 charged for a ferry and breakfast package. I checked the amount, recognized it, and approved it. My money, my decision, my seat. I smiled at the screen. That small moment felt more luxurious than every private tour my father had booked. Looking back, I do not believe freezing the card destroyed my family. It destroyed an arrangement that required one daughter to remain endlessly competent, financially available, and emotionally undemanding, so everyone else could experience themselves as generous. The family survived. Mom survived a canceled anniversary trip. Dad survived public embarrassment. Emily survived paying her own bills. Caleb survived a smaller apartment and a broken engagement. I survived Christmas outside the old house. The catastrophe everyone predicted was mostly the loss of convenience and image. What replaced it was less beautiful in photographs and healthier in ordinary life. I also learned documentation can protect reality when manipulation depends on blurred memory. Keeping receipts was not cold. It prevented every old promise from becoming, "I don't remember saying that." But documents alone could not heal me. I had to stop treating proof as a substitute for self-trust. Eventually, I no longer needed to reopen the grease folder. I knew what happened. Dad knew. Mom knew. My siblings knew. Their discomfort no longer required another presentation. I moved the file into encrypted storage and stopped carrying the receipts emotionally. Boundaries are not a museum where you revisit the injury every day. They are doors you control after learning why locks exist. Generosity returned too. I helped Emily after a medical procedure because she asked and I wanted to. I paid for Mom and Dad to attend a modest anniversary dinner after Dad said, "We can afford the meal, but we would love your company." I paid my own share and attended. I gave Caleb professional advice without becoming his lender. I donated travel vouchers to families whose children needed treatment at distant hospitals. The difference was choice. Before Greece, giving was the rent I paid to remain connected. After Greece, giving became something I could offer without purchasing a seat. My father once asked during coffee, "Do you think you would have kept helping forever if we had invited you?" I considered it. Probably. He looked ashamed. "Then excluding you saved you. Do not turn it into a gift." Right. He corrected himself. "Our cruelty forced clarity you should not have needed." Yes. I'm sorry. I know. Both true. Mom later admitted the photographs mattered to her more than she wanted to believe. "I imagined 3 couples in Greece," she said. "Your father and me, Caleb and Nora, Emily and Mason. It looked like proof we had raised a successful family. And me? You looked like the part that had not resolved." I was successful. I know. Then what needed resolving? You were unmarried after a broken engagement. I was ashamed that I thought appearance mattered more than your actual life. Why use my money? Because in my mind, you were still part of the family resources even when I removed you from the family picture. The sentence was horrifying and honest. Do you understand why that changed everything? Yes. Good. We sat quietly. Repair did not require me to make her feel better immediately. That is another lesson. Safe accountability includes tolerating the injured person's silence. Last Thanksgiving, we gathered at Emily and Mason's house. 15 people, Mom asked before assigning seats. Dad paid for the turkey. Caleb brought pie. Nora was no longer part of our lives, though I occasionally heard she had married someone else, and was happy. Jordan sat beside me because I wanted him there, not because the table required a pair. Before dinner, Emily placed her phone on a shelf. "Picture?" Everyone agreed. I stepped toward the back automatically. Caleb said, "Nope, middle." "Why?" "Because you're short. I'm taller than Mom, not emotionally." Everyone laughed, including me. He moved a chair so I stood between Emily and Dad. Mom looked at the screen before posting anything. "Private family group only?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "Everyone okay with that?" Everyone answered. Consent had entered the photograph. The image was imperfect. Dad's eyes were half closed. Mason was still moving. Jordan looked toward me instead of the camera. Emily printed it anyway. Underneath, she wrote, "Nobody was budgeted in. Everybody was invited. That is the family I can participate in now. Not perfect, not erased. A family where the person providing something is still asked whether she wants to attend. A family where a saved card is not permission, a past favor is not an open account, and independence is not evidence that someone deserves less consideration." The grease charge was $13,480. For years, I thought that number measured the betrayal. It did not. The betrayal had accumulated through smaller amounts: the school trip money returned after the bus left, the graduation dinner scheduled around Caleb, the engagement balance paid from the edge of the room, the medical care I provided, without appearing in the recovery photograph, the place cards arranged around couples, the questions about ferries sent to the daughter who was not invited aboard. The charge simply gathered the pattern into one number large enough that even I could no longer call it misunderstanding. Freezing the card did not make me selfish. It made the family experience the real cost of choices they had expected me to subsidize. Walking out of Thanksgiving did not mean I stopped loving them. It meant love finally stopped overriding consent. Forgiving some of them did not restore automatic access. Forgiveness changed what I carried. Boundaries changed what they could reach. Those are different decisions, and healthy families should stop demanding them as a package. So here is the question I would ask anyone listening, because people still argue about my choice. If your parents and siblings excluded you from a luxury family vacation because you were single, secretly charged the trip to your card, and then demanded that you publicly lie to protect your brother's engagement and your father's reputation, but years later gave specific apologies, repaid part of what they owed, respected your boundaries, and genuinely changed, would you slowly rebuild the relationships while keeping your finances permanently separate? Or would using your money after deciding you did not belong be the betrayal that closes the door forever?